All right, so hopefully this is the last of the 3 videos, and what we're going to talk about in this video here is um, the fact that there wasn't a clear comparison or contrast within body paragraphs, and the warrant in body paragraphs itself. So let's first talk about this, and this is something that I saw throughout all of our papers. So even if I didn't comment on this, you really need to pay attention to it. There was literally one essay that did this okay, and shout out to that person. Emma Nelson did a good job of this. So the rest of you really need to take a look at how your body paragraphs show the relationship between the subjects. So what I'm talking about is that in the body paragraph itself, there is no clear relationship between the two subjects. So taking a look at this, right? So a little bit of context. This student is talking about Dr. Korb and Bishop Long, and how they kind of support Cedric, okay? So the student had already done a body paragraph about Dr. Korb, okay? So shout out to this student for actually at least transitioning, right? To say like, okay, what I'm going to talk to you about is different. Bishop Long is different than Dr. Korb. So that's good. But that's the last time this student ever references Dr. Korb in this body paragraph. So all they're doing is they're talking about like, oh, Bishop Long believes in achieving spiritual success through faith in God, demonstrated, and we see this through his preaching word. Okay, got clear topic sentence, so that's good. Yay! It's not a statement of fact; it is a statement of, it's an argument. So then they give me evidence of like, look at this is where we see that there's some warrant here. There's more evidence about Long, then there's more evidence, etc. Warrant, warrant, warrant. So the paragraph itself is fine. But the problem is, where is there clear distinction from Dr. Korb? Like, where is it clear that Dr. Korb is different than Bishop Long? I don't know. And because of that, it almost seems like you've got 2 body paragraphs that are like mini papers. This paragraph here seems like a mini paper about Bishop Long, rather than a paragraph that's about Bishop Long and Dr. Korb. So the student could say here to Long, like for example here, so if we're going to continue reading, blah, 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 in Long's sermons he urges, blah, blah, Long believes that giving all your money you can send is trust God, blah, 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 trust God. So here, there could literally be, you could literally have the, like a transition, is you could put something like, unlike Dr. Korb, Long believes, and so then you could continue, Long believes spiritual success is trusting God. Right? So like literally you're saying like, oh, okay, so that's what's different about them. Right? So then again, the student could articulate it, in addition to trusting God to provide for them, Long urges Cedric and his congregants to place all the problems in God and fix trust below. Long desires his congregation to trust God and his spiritual success. And again, this would be a reference to Dr. Korb. Law, Dr. Korb, in direct contrast to Long, urges Cedric to blank, 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 blank. So again, notice how simple that transition is, just to show the relationship between the 2 subjects. Right now, the student didn't have any of that in here. The student just had the one the one statement that they had about the relationship between Korb and Long, was right here. That's it, was this. And so what I'm seeing is that you students, you writers need to look, where can I show the relationship between my subjects? So if I'm talking, even if they're comparing, right? So even if the student was saying like they're the same, then why don't you say something like here, much like Dr. Korb, and you could even say that here, similar to Dr. Korb, like just simple things, simple contrast words, excuse me, not contrast words, simple transition words that show the relationship between your subjects. So that was an issue that I saw, and everybody needs to work on that because many of our paragraphs seemed like mini papers about different subjects without showing how the subjects related to each other. Um, so then the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was just warrant. So here's what I anticipate a question would be from some of you. Miss Hain, you kept telling me that my warrant was unclear. What do you mean by that? So that's what a student would ask. And you're right, I didn't use my annoying student voice because I just want to make sure that you understand this. So in the first video, one thing I do want to point out is that in the first video, I talked to you about something, the overarching so what. So the overarching so what. And that is related to warrant, but they're not the same thing. So warrant is why your evidence is important to your argument, right? So after a piece of evidence, you're going to explain to me why that evidence is important to your argument. The overarching so what, think of that as the warrant for your paper. Why is your paper important for the reader? So think of it that way. I just want to point that out because warrant and the overarching so what are related, but they're not the same thing. And I'm sure there's a more like academic word for me to use with this, but the overarching so what is what I'm going to say about the reason that you tell the reader why your paper is important, okay? The warrant is simply always about the evidence that you're using and how the evidence relates to your argument. So let's take a look at what a good example of warrant would look like. So this is a student sample, and I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to tell you where the warrant is good. All right? So throughout Belleau High School, Cedric's perseverance to hold himself to high standards has led him away from negative impacts and towards success. So, shout out to this student. This is a really good topic sentence because it's an argument that's telling me we're going to be looking at specifically Cedric at Belleau, Cedric and his perseverance at Belleau, and then they're hinting at the warrant already. Because his perseverance, and what is that perseverance? Holding himself to high standards has kept him basically out of trouble, right? So the student already in the topic sentence is already helping hint at that warrant. Why is the evidence important? Because it's going to show us how it's geared him towards success. But let's keep reading, okay? Cedric routinely spends his free time working on excess homework because, quote, with so little work being done during class time, extra credit projects would be crucial to learn anything. Good evidence. It's good evidence, and it's a quote. Yay! Quotes aren't necessary, but this student did a really good job of integrating the quote and using it as direct evidence. Totally. He was aware of the fact of how low the standards are for students at Belleau and realized that if he had hoped to attend an Ivy League school, it would be mandatory to work above the minimal homework requirement in his school and complete excess homework just to keep pace with other students from higher ranking schools. Now, I will say this is an insanely long sentence. Look how long that sentence is. Doot, 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 doot. But so the student is providing some really good context to the evidence. It's also functioning really strongly as the warrant. So here I would be asking, okay, why do I need to know that he's using this excess time? And so the evidence, this is explaining to me why the evidence is important. Well, the evidence is important because he knows that he needs to work beyond, he has to work beyond the minimal homework requirements. He has to keep pace. So like this is telling me, why is it important to know that he goes to class, that he does extra credit projects? Why is that important? Well, because he knows he has to keep working. And that is directly linking back up to this of the towards success. So this student, while the warrant could be reworded for clarity, simply because it's like super long, the student is still providing a clear understanding of why the evidence is important. Okay, but let's continue to read. So, starting here, a vast amount of his persistence to accomplish his goal of attending a prestigious school is also shown when other students skip their classes and Cedric, quote, is left to learn in this awkward question response style across a sea of unoccupied desks. Okay, again, we've got evidence here that's linking up to there, that both of these are linking up to there. Even when peer influences make these decisions to not further their education, Cedric resists the pressure to imitate what others are doing, mainly because of his desire to succeed in his future. So this is a student kind of like, I should have highlighted that green for the warrant there. That's the student relating to the warrant. Like they're saying like, okay, why is this important? Well, because he knows he's got to succeed. He is certain that the other student's actions lead to I should say lead to little success later in life, which is why he decides to stay in school, blah, 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 blah. So here again is Warrant to explain why the evidence is important. This student does a good job of articulating to me, why is it important to know about this? Why did they provide me this evidence of Cedric going to class? Well, because Cedric knows Cedric knows he has to go to school to be successful. So here's the student providing warrant. And yeah, okay, I'm not going to get into the specifics of like, well, it should have been reworded, blah, blah, blah. Shut up. At least they have warrant here. And then again, the student has evidence listed here, and then they have warrant here by sharing his goals. He is articulating the standards that he has and the wishes that he has. The student does a really good job. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that this student is kind of using the organizational pattern that we had talked about throughout the year. They've got evidence, and then they've got warrant. Then they've got evidence, and then they've got warrant. Then they've got evidence, and then they've got warrant. That's typically how it organizes itself. And so I'm only pointing that out to take a look at your own paper. Do you have evidence? Okay, which we talked about in a previous video. If you do, does your evidence have warrant? So you could easily use that organizational pattern to double check to make sure that you have the warrant that you need. Okay, so this is a conclusion of the videos to help support you if you plan on doing a rewrite. If you need any other support from me, you can come and see me during Lunch and Learn or make an appointment. I would highly suggest that you use these videos to augment your understanding of what you did well and what you didn't do so well. As your teacher and as your educator, as your supporter through this, I don't have time to literally comment on every single word. I wish I did, but I don't. So it is your responsibility to use my feedback in these videos and in the feedback that I give you in your papers to assess your work and decide what do you need to work on. And again, I'm available during Lunch and Learn, before and after school, as long as you communicate with me when you are coming in.